Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of DHCD's Creating Community Vitality series, focused on storytelling today. And that's about what connects and brings us together. Sharing stories from your community is key to building strong emotional connections, cultivating pride, bolstering small businesses, and attracting and retaining talent and investment. I'm Kyle Meyer, a Community Revitalization Specialist for DHCD's Community Revitalization Office, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Of course, we've got to do a little bit of housekeeping, give you the lay of the land. To reduce background noise and distraction, please mute yourselves, and you may also turn off your camera if you want. But I see everybody's doing really good with that. I think we're in the zone nowadays with all these Zoom meetings. We are recording the webinar, and shortly after we will post the recording and presentation on virginiamainstreet.com in the Community Vitality, Creating Community Vitality tab. Look for the Creating Community Vitality series page. There will be a Q&A opportunity at the end, so please use the chat feature to ask questions at any point. Nevertheless, feel free to enter your questions and or note on your series workbook that you've printed up. So if you want to print up that workbook and you don't have it just yet, if you go to virginiamainstreet.com to the Creating Community Vitality tab, you should be able to do that. Unless some of my coworkers want to throw that into the chat. So as far as that chat feature goes, that's in the upper right-hand corner, and I believe you all have already discovered the little microphone and the little camera where you can turn off your camera or mute yourself. So in the upper right-hand corner, you have the chat feature. You can also, with those little heads, see who is attending if you're curious what peers are present today. So just to see if you know how to use that chat, I'm curious what communities are here. So why don't you throw your community name into the chat so I can give you a little shout out. Harrisonburg, right on. Good to see you, Andrea. And Fredericksburg. Deltaville, nice. And Cape Charles. Martinsville, good to see you. Newmarket, Gloucester, Winchester, Bristol, Dayton, Buena Vista, Galax, Luray, Wytheville, Ashland, Stanton, Colonial Beach. Oh, I love it. Orange, Virginia, Abingdon. We've got a wonderful spread here of the Commonwealth, so thank you so much for joining us. Let's see, let me get to the next slide. I'm going between screens, I always lose my cursor. So this Community Vitality series, it's a monthly series with the intent to provide inspiration, ideas, and resources to help position your community for success in a post-COVID world, by ensuring local amenities, infrastructure, and social offerings are in place to retain and attract an increasingly mobile workforce. We recognize the market is changing and there are new opportunities ahead. The series is organized around three key themes: identity, which is recognizing your community's core strengths and weaknesses around place, people, and the leadership pipeline; ecosystems, exploring the systems that support successful business startup, tourism, housing, and worldwide connectivity; and community, strengthening public spaces that encourage public interaction, inviting cultural events that celebrate local foods and history, and inviting everyone to affect change. So the monthly topics are spread out throughout the year, and you can see that we are very comprehensive about what we're hitting. And they are reinforced through DHCD's Partners for Better Communities podcasts and Virginia Main Street blog posts. So the podcast, I'll tell you about who's coming up next. We've already had a few that are completed, and you can listen to those. So definitely go to DHCD's Partners for Better Communities podcast page, and you can just Google that, and it should be able to take you there. All right, Let's get to the main attraction. Our speaker today is Phil Ike, co-founder of Proud Places and founder of Storyville Social, an agency dedicated to bringing human connection into the marketing of cities across the country. Through photography, videography, writing, podcasting, and social media management, Phil combines the art of storytelling with the art of marketing, putting a face on our places by telling the stories of the people who live there. Based out of Bay City, Michigan, Phil has a rich background as a music major, elementary school teacher, guitar builder, and organist. In our recent conversation, I found out his grandfather played organ for silent movies and passed down the talent to 2 generations. So currently, Phil is tasked with creating story content for the city of Saginaw, and instilling pride in the community is his priority. He said in a recent news article, if you want your roads fixed, people have to care about the roads first. If you want more businesses in your downtown, people have to care about your downtown first. You'll find out from Phil that storytelling is one of the most important vehicles for creating community vitality. Today, he will dig into Storyville's Grow Your Stories program and teach you a simple, sustainable, and easy to implement framework to create beautiful and authentic local storytelling. Welcome, Phil, and let me stop sharing and I'll hand the reins over to you.
Okay. All right.
It's looking good. You got it.
We're ready to rock and roll. Again, thanks for that awesome intro. Kyle, it sounds like you did a little bit of reconnaissance on me before, which is awesome. So again, my name's Phil Ike, and I'm the founder of Storyville Social up here in Bay City, Michigan. And today we're talking about creating pride in place through storytelling. So what we do at Storyville is a little bit uncommon and a little bit unique, and it really lays the foundation for everything that we're talking about today. So just to give you a little bit of context, this is what we do. So imagine Humans of New York meets civic marketing. And those are the kinds of stories that we present. And so they're quote-based stories with portraits of people. And how that works is we work with a city. They decide the 52 or 104 stories that they want for the year. And then we go into that city, interview all those people, take professional photos of them, go back, transcribe and edit those stories so that they're readable and compelling and correct. And then we post those story-based marketing pieces to a city's or Main Street program's social media feeds for them. And how we came about this approach has a lot to do with my own personal story. That's me. And I like Kyle alluded to before, I haven't always been in marketing. I was actually a 5th and 6th grade teacher here in Bay City. And this is a little blast from the past. This is me in my 5th and 6th grade class at one of our awesome Christmas parties. And somewhere around the 5th year of teaching, my twin brother lost his job. And it was a recession of 2008. He had actually started working at Huss and Dalton Guitars in Stanton, Virginia. So shout out to Stanton. Love your city. My goodness, what an awesome city. I think it's the first place I ever went duck pin bowling, if I'm remembering that correctly. And so he started working there, ended up moving to Chicago, lost his job. And I said, well, I have a house. Come move in with me while you figure out what your next steps are. And his next steps ended up being to build his own guitars in a closet in my garage, and he became one of 3 people in the world to build steel body acoustic resonator guitars by hand. And that's a picture of not me and me. That's my twin brother in the middle, Matt, holding one of the guitars that we made. This is Smithers, a good friend of ours, also a Virginia native from Bergton, the little hamlet town of Bergton. And so because it was so exclusive, he ended up with a 3-year wait list. And so I left teaching to work for him. And we didn't know anything about running a business or marketing or advertising or anything like that. So we were really just making up things as we went along. And so as far as marketing went, we decided just to do what we knew how to do, and that was post to Instagram. And Instagram was relatively new at the time, and we were building guitars and had to do the marketing. And so we needed something that was quick, that was simple. And so we decided to do this documentary style approach to marketing, where we were just showing people what we were doing every day, showing guitars in the different stages of the process. And by the end of the first year, we were making guitars twice as fast, but the wait list was still 3 years long, because people were so not only excited about the instruments, but excited about being part of the story, that they could follow along with the growth of this business, and that we were human and that we were authentic, and it felt real in a way that social media doesn't always feel real. But somewhere around the third year of teaching, I understood that guitar building was not my long-term career. And so I was looking for another option, but I was in a little bit of a pickle, because I was previously a teacher, and then I was a guitar builder. And so I didn't really have a resume to present to another employer. I knew I wasn't going back to teaching, and I felt like I don't really have it in me to go back to school and start over again. And so I was in a little bit of a tough spot. So I looked at what I could do that people could maybe pay me money for. And I was taking the photos and running the social media accounts and said, oh, this might be something that other businesses might be into, this human-centered, story-based approach to marketing. So I picked up my camera and I started walking around Old Town Saginaw, just looking for businesses who would let me take photos for free so that I could build a portfolio. Because at that point I had like 10,000 pictures of my twin brother building guitars. And so the first business I walked into was Mr. Van Shoe Repair in Saginaw, Michigan. And this is the owner, Garrett. And the angle is that Garrett is a 26-year-old who bought into a dying profession. So here's this young guy now owning a cobbler shop, which is unfortunately a dying profession. And so he had a great story. And that was really the start of this kind of work. Well, by month 6, I had a full client list of 13 nonprofits and businesses who were all really compelled by this human-centered approach. So one day I was having coffee with my friend Wayne, and he said, did you put in a proposal for the Riverfront project? And I was like, I don't even know what the Riverfront project is. So I did not. And so it turns out that the city of Saginaw was looking for ways to tell the world about the good things that were happening there, because unfortunately the city of Saginaw, generally speaking, doesn't have a great reputation in the state of Michigan. It struggles with poverty, it struggles with crime. A lot of its downtown area is vacant. It's a great city full of passionate people with a big history, but it does have a lot of challenges. And I said, oh man, this sounds like an amazing project. So I pounded my coffee and ran back to my office because the proposals were due the next morning. And so I'm in a little bit of a time crunch and thinking, I've never marketed for a city before. Like, what would I do? And I just thought about the work that I was doing, and a little bit of a mixture because of the time crunch, but because I thought it might work, I came up with a 4-word marketing strategy for the city. And that was this: human faces, human stories. And so I wrote out this proposal, I submitted this proposal, and they accepted it. And so we went into the city and we started doing these face-to-face interviews and these quote-based stories. And we had such a level of success with it within the first 3 months that the government came to us and said, we're really interested in this too, but from a public information standpoint, explaining the government to citizens and getting them involved in that way. And so we wrote out a proposal and they accepted it. And so we started doing podcast episodes with the city manager, or we'd go into the water treatment plant and interview them, and they'd explain how the water gets cleaned and all sorts of cool stuff like that. And so what happened over the course of 12 months is this: On the left is the Riverfront account. So this is the downtown Old Town area. On the right is the City of Saginaw government account. And these are the statistics for the year. So over the course of the year, in a city of less than 50,000 people, in a city that struggles with poverty and crime, and a downtown that is definitely, investments are being made, but it's not a tourist destination by any means. Positive stories were seen almost 13 million times. Just stories of human beings in Saginaw who love their city and are doing great work. So almost 13 million times. If you look at the graph here on the left, this little snippet right here, this was the account before those stories started. So almost completely flatlined. This was the start of our first story right here. And so you see that this is a compelling way to market your places. I'm not showing you these stats to brag at all. I'm showing you these stats because one of the biggest criticisms of storytelling and marketing is that it doesn't work. It makes people feel nice and it makes us feel good. And that's kind of where it ends. But if you look at this, this is the math. Math proves that it does work. And not only does it work, the level of success of this shows that storytelling is essential. We have to tell stories about our cities because it's how citizens connect to our place, and it's how people outside of our community perceive that place. And if we're not telling these stories, people don't know anything about us. And so storytelling is essential. It's not just icing on the cake. It's not the cherry on top when you don't have anything else to do. It's essential to how we should communicate information about our places to people. So that's my story. I need to get to know you a little bit. And I want to know your story. So you got three multiple choice questions coming at you here on this slide. The very first question is the following: how important is social media to your place-focused marketing efforts? A, minimally important. B, about equal to the other forms of marketing. And C, the most important form of marketing. So go ahead, vote on that guy. We're just getting a snapshot of the
yeah, and those who are voting in the chat, you should see the poll pop up and select the answer there so that we can see the results as you all answer. So far, we have 4 votes that social media is the most important form of marketing. There you go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Seeing a lot of B's and C's. Cool. When that slows down, we'll move on to the second one. Second question. What kind? You got to go.
Yeah, I was going to end that one.
Okay, cool.
So the second poll is up.
Second question: what kind of content fills a majority of your social media feed? Only two answers here to keep things simple. A, is it information? So event notices, this business offers, you could group ads in there, just kind of like a public information. Or B, human interest, interviews, stories, games, etc. So information or human interest, stories, games, etc.
There you go. And thank you to everybody that's clarifying the location of these polls. And yes, it's in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, that little triangle, square, and circle icon. It's where you'll find it. Oh.
Woo. Okay. Are we ready for the third question?
Yeah, I think we've slowed down there.
Cool.
Yep. All right.
And then finally, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to social media? Is it A, technical knowledge? So how to navigate the platforms, running advertising, how to best use the technical aspects of the platform, or is it B, generating content? So creating photos and interviews, all that stuff that goes up on social media every day. So go ahead, vote. Cool. Awesome. Great. So that gives me a little bit of a snapshot with you, but I'm also asking that question because this question, what's your story, is really the foundational question that we as people who market our places have to answer before it gets asked. Because story is how we find out information about anything. It's what tells people about our communities. Is it safe? Is it welcoming? Or is it dangerous and unfriendly? It tells people about government. Does it work for the people or against the people? About our business environment, our economic situation. Is it growing, and is there potential there? And could I start a business there and be successful? Or am I going to be fighting your city every step of the way to try to run a business on top of all the hard things that come with running a business? And so that's really the question that we have to ask. And I alluded to it a little bit before at the title. Why is the title Pride? Why this idea of cultivating pride? Why not call it something maybe a little bit more direct, like cultivating economic development through storytelling, or cultivating or supporting small businesses through storytelling? Why pride? Well, in our quest to make better places, we have all of these different areas. We have things like housing, generating local wealth, government issues, small business, jobs, government or community development, tourism, talent attraction and retention, investment, talent and attraction, all these different areas that have to be improving to make our places great for people. And in order to make these areas great, we should directly address them in the ways that they're best addressed. But what if we could market or do something in such a way that we raise the potential of all of these things at the same time? What if there was a common thread between all of these different areas, and we addressed that common thread and then could improve the potential to succeed or accomplish something? And to me, that thread is pride, because like Kyle alluded to in the beginning, if people don't care about our place, none of this will happen. Why do we support our small businesses? It's because we care about our small businesses. Why do people go to council meetings or run for council or government? It's because they care about their places. And so to assume that people will do these things before they actually care, it's wrong. We don't spend time or money or effort or investment on anything that we don't care about. And so we have to address emotion first. Pride connects all of these things, but it's also the tide that raises the potential of all of these ships. On top of that, pride in place is uncommon. I mean, we all work in place, and what prevailing, the vocal minority of people, what are they saying? They're complaining about where they live. They don't like the government. They're not enough businesses are here. That's kind of the prevailing conversation. And so when somebody comes across a place that displays pride and embraces its people and tells their stories, and the citizens are like, man, you gotta come live here. It is literally the best place. That's attractive because it's rare and it's intriguing and it's compelling, because those are communities that we want to be part of too. And that emotion is so critical. Again, people write off pride and love and all of these emotions because you can't put them on a spreadsheet, right? You can't assign a number, like a metric, to love. But here's an example. Here's Melody. She's an owner of a costume shop in Saginaw. And I was there and I had 5 interviews scheduled for the afternoon. My last one canceled last minute. And I could have gone back to the office, but I really wanted 5 stories. I didn't want to leave without a 5th story. So I just did what I always do and just kind of walk around and look for a business to pop into that would be willing to do an interview. So it was coming up to Halloween, and I saw a costume shop, and I said, this could be appropriate. And I walked in, and it's floor to ceiling theatrical production level costumes. In every nook and cranny, there's hats and gloves and glasses and capes and cloaks and all of this crazy stuff. And Melody is standing behind the counter. And I go up to her and I say, hi, my name's Phil Ike. I'm from the city of Saginaw, and we're telling stories of small businesses to support the role in the community. Is this something that you would be interested in? And she looks up at me with the deepest, darkest scowl on her face and says, are you charging me money for this? And I said, no, it's already been paid for. A bunch of community stakeholders donated a bunch of money to fund this work, and all you have to do is say yes. And I spent 2.5 hours in Melody's shop recording 2 interviews, doing a video, doing photographs, and we sat down in this chair, in these 2 chairs that she's sitting in right now. And as I'm packing up my gear, she looks at me and says, this was just the greatest day. The backstory on Melody is that she opened this shop 50 years ago with her husband, and her husband recently passed away. And she's been trying to run the shop ever since by herself. This moment was probably the first moment in 50 years that somebody from the city had walked into her business for the sole purpose of trying to help her. Do you think that the next morning she looked at her business differently? Do you think that she valued her role differently? Do you think the story hasn't even run yet? I just sat there and listened to her tell her story. Nobody else knows the story at this point, but she's feeling different about her role in the community. Do you think she runs a better business when this story goes up and literally thousands of people come out of the woodwork to like and share and comment her post and say, we love you being here, you're the greatest thing. I won a costume award back in 2007 for my pirate costume. That was the greatest thing. Emotion is important. It's the missing link. We love information on social media because it's fast and it's quick and easy, but emotion is the thing that compels us as human beings. Yeah, she's worthy, and that's what storytelling does. What about her? Just look at her. Look at her face. This is a new slide, by the way. Look at her face, look at her clothes. What do you think about this woman? Her name's Yoko. If you look at her eyes, she looks kind, she looks intentional. She's older, so it looks like she's lived a life full of stories. She's well put together. I mean, look at her. Her outfit, she chose this outfit for these pictures. Classy, yeah. Look at her hair, perfectly done. Already the picture of her is intriguing to us. It's telling a story. We just don't, it's hinting at a story. We just don't know what it is. So here's the start of her story. A long time ago in 1933, I was born in Tokyo, Japan. I told you the year I was born because that means I experienced World War II. I was a little girl, but I watched. There's no television, no computer, just radio, and the city was all taken over by the military. I was in 5th grade when the bombing of Tokyo happened. They knew it was going to be bad, I guess. We were warned. And the Empress ordered us to evacuate all the elementary school children, and I had to leave for about 1 year. What's the rest of the story? I want to know. I mean, this is a woman living at a time none of us were alive, in a place none of us have lived, experiencing an evacuation of all the children in Tokyo. Suddenly Tokyo has no children. Just this incredible experience. She's living through it. If you're intrigued, everybody else was intrigued too. This one post reached about 26,000 people in one day. Now, why did we make this post? It was to promote an event at the Japanese Cultural Center happening the next week. Now, we could have just posted on Monday, October 23rd, there'll be a virtual tea ceremony at the Japanese Cultural Center. Tune in at 7. And we definitely did those posts because those posts are important. But what's going to captivate people? What's going to show them value? What's going to lure them in and make them want to participate in that? It's her. It's her and her story. It's not about the event. It's about her because she's a human being. Now, why this emphasis on humanity? It's because if we go back all the way to the very first settlement, okay, the first grouping of 5 people who are all like, you know what, if we team up, we could have a better go at it. Like, hey, you want to hang out? Okay, I can make fire, I can make tents, let's do it. If you go all the way back to that, it was a matter of survival. We didn't park our encampment on the grassy plain because it had great retail options, right? Or we didn't move our settlement to the forest because of the nightlife. It's just got a better nightlife over there. It's where we could survive. And that survival extended to the people that we allow into our community, because we want people that have our best interests in mind, that we're able to work together as a team, and that they also bring value into our community. They have a skill or knowledge or experience that can benefit our community. And so what happened was, we as human beings got really, really good at the art of the first impression. And how do we evaluate first impressions? It's only on 2 qualities: empathy and authority. Some people call it warmth and competence. Those are the only 2. Why? If somebody is warm, friendly, conversational, interested in us, that means that they're a good team player, right? There's potential for us to work together. On the authority and competence side, they should bring some kind of value to my life, that my life should be better in some way because we're in this relationship. They're bringing something to the table that I don't have. And so those 2 things combined, that's how we evaluate people. If we're missing one of those, that's a low value relationship. So for instance, warmth. Somebody's very friendly. They're the neighbor that you see once every 6 months because you happen to get the mail at the same time. Friendly, right? Hey neighbor, see ya. They're friendly, but that's not a high value relationship because they're not offering us a skill or experience or knowledge. They're not benefiting our lives in some way. And so our brain says, this is a low value relationship. Don't spend time with it. On the other side, if somebody is very knowledgeable, but they're not warm and friendly, we look at those relationships and say, it kind of feels like that person could end up using me or manipulating me, or when I need help and they could help me, they're not going to because it doesn't benefit them. And so we need these 2 things. And so what happened from the beginning of human beings was that people became the first brands, and our faces were the first logos. So the first logo was a human face. Translate that to our places. If we make our places look more like humans, we have a chance to display this warmth that everybody physiologically is looking for. We also have this chance to display value. We can make your lives better if you are here with us. And that's why we put human faces on our places, is because it connects to how we work as human beings. Every single human being is looking for connection and engagement and value and all of these things. What if our places could give people exactly what they're looking for? And it's our job to show them that through humanity, through these stories. If we post these stories, for instance, on social media, it gives us an opportunity to give people a different look. So if I just take a picture of beer, for instance, from our local microbrewery, it could be a really great picture of beer, but I guarantee you people are seeing pictures of beer all over the place, on their feeds, on this. But what if they stopped at a human face, and they saw this human face. It gives us this opportunity to say, hey, we do something just a little bit differently here. On top of that, if the first part of marketing is what kind of message we're sending, the second part is how we send it and where we send it. And I'll give you an example. So say that you want more citizens at a city council meeting. And so you sit down with your team and you pound out this really compelling message about being stakeholders and decision makers and civic engagement, and give them all the information, and it's beautiful. And you print it off and you walk it up 4 flights of stairs all down this dark hallway to the deepest recesses of City Hall in a dark corner where the bulletin board is, and you staple it up there, and you walk back to your office and say, yeah, this is going to get people there. And the next council meeting comes and there's even less people. Why? It's not because the message was bad, it's because where you put it, there weren't any people. We have to put our marketing where the people are. And this is why, like back in the day, you had town squares where people would go and they would pound their announcements, because everybody was in the town square. Sooner or later, people had to run into the town square. Town criers literally walking through the roads, yet screaming information at people, because that's where the people were. So what if I told you that there was a place where 80% of your population is, and they spend on average 7 hours every single day there, literally glued to it? There is a place, and it's here. It's on your phone, on social media. And I'm not casting judgment, about social media, but this is where people are. So this is where our message has to be. So if you're pumped about storytelling, I'm also pumped that you are pumped. But don't let your excitement get out in front of you. There's some rules involved, some lessons that I've learned through this work. Rule number 1, your city already has a story. Don't try to rewrite it. Don't try to dress it up in some new clothes and make it more appealing. Well, Amazon's not going to like it if we had a period of 10 years where we were really struggling. Like, don't do that. Your stories are your stories. And so you have to own your stories. You have to trust your people. If the stories come across as not authentic or gross or not true, people are going to disengage with it. Citizens are going to be like, yeah, that's not really the Bay City that we know. This is like kind of a weird gentrified version of Bay City. So own your story. Your city already has it. You need to tell it to the world. Rule number 2, tell a good story. Don't try to sell. We live in a post-advertising world. Back when TVs were new and there was one channel and one show and 2 commercials, it was a big deal to have an ad because you were 50% of the market share for advertisements for that day. Today, we see 5,000 ads a day. Tell me one that you remember. You don't. Why not? It's because our brain is awesome, and our brain subconsciously processes all of this data and all of this information that we see whizzing by our eyeballs every single day, and it's sorting it and saying, not valuable, not valuable, not valuable, not valuable, not valuable. So, because attention takes energy and it takes calories. And so if our brain burns up attention on useless information, it's not going to function. It could mean a low rate of survival. And so if we tell stories in a way that makes it look like an advertisement, people's brains are automatically going to say, don't pay attention to that, don't pay attention to that, don't do it. I'll give you an example. I did a story series for a local hospital. Same kind of approach. Gave them beautiful portraits of people, showed up on my feed the next day, and they had slapped their giant logo over half of this portrait. Brutal. I bet you not a single person read that, because what do they see? They don't see a human being. They see, boom, the name of this hospital. We want your money. And so to them, it looks like an ad. So tell a good story. Don't try to sell it. Rule number 3, the less you, the better. Sometimes I see cities do this, and then like their Main Street manager becomes the host of the show. And so every morning you see their face and like, hi, I'm Phil and I'm here at the pizza shop today. And then you like the next day is like, hi, I'm Phil, I'm drinking a beer today. And it's like the journeys of Phil. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. And so the less you, the better. Yes, sometimes you might need a presence in there, but you're going to save yourself work and heartache, and your stories are going to be better if you don't make it about you. It's really easy to do either because you're feeling responsible or ego or whatever it is, but make it about the more people you can make the stars of the show, the better. Rule number 4, believe you have an infinite number of stories to tell. I get this question every time we sign a contract. Somebody says, do you really think we have enough stories to tell? If you have a village of 2,000 people, you have at least 2,000 stories to tell. You could tell a new story every single day for the next 3 years and not run out. So you have an infinite number of stories to tell, and you have to tell them. And then finally, rule number 5, citizens before everybody else. And this sounds harsh and it sounds cruel, like we're prioritizing people over people, but the citizens are the people that make your city what it is. They are the people that are investing their lives in you, in the city. They're sacrificing, they're working, they're spending their time. And so these stories have to hold them up on a platform like the people that they are. They're really the heroes of our places, because without them, we have nothing. We have to support them. We have to win them over. And then by creating these super fans, these people that are just feeling the love and support, that's when really beautiful things start happening outside of the community. And so you have to embrace your citizens first. If you're telling these stories with a very blatant intention to increase tourism or to try to attract, you know, the employer that's going to save your city from the outside, it's not going to work. People are going to think it's gross. Embrace your citizens first. So now we're ready to tell a story. Storytelling 101, your first story ever. Woohoo! Even if you've done storytelling before, and a lot of you have based on the multiple choice question, that's awesome. But here's a quick and easy template. Don't try to read all of this, just look at it for structure. There's a lot of words there and they're very tiny, but let's just look at it. This is a one picture, one story, one post template. So we're trying to keep things super simple. So the caption, the picture, and then this was all our nifty engagement stuff. Notice how the story is quotes only. That's because you have limited real estate on social media. You have a limited amount of characters. And then also what it does, it really gets people right to the heart of the story right away. And at the beginning of Storyville, this is not the approach we took. But over time, we saw that these were really the most successful posts. And so we went to quotes only. And I'll tell you how to gather those quotes in a really easy way in just a second. First line is called the lead. This is the attention getter. This is really where you capture people's attention. And on social media, it's the first 3 words, which is so short. This is not a strong lead. I wish we would have done better on this, but we'll talk a little bit about B+ work later on. But it does fit the rest of the story, which is really this sequence of starting a business, failing a business, starting a business, failed business, until he gets all the way to the end with a big finish. Notice it's simple sentences in short sections, so aim for like a 3rd grade to 5th grade reading level. It's a longer post than typically what's on social media, but notice how it's 2 sentences break, 2 or 3 sentences break. It looks like it's easy to read, and that's important to make sure that we're capturing people's attention. And then finally, the big finish. This is the part where it has to be emotional. There has to be a punch here. Here, if you're local to Saginaw, this is the big reveal about how Jake's Old City Grill finally got its name. And so this is the part that will compel people to engage with the post. So either like, comment, or share it, because it's the last impression before they can take an action. And so this is critical to the part to getting the story seen by the most people. The more engagement a post has, the more people that are going to see it. And so spend a lot of time crafting the beginning of the post, spend a lot of time crafting the end of the post. To the picture, single portrait pictures are 10-to-1 better for stories like this than anything else. Why? It's because, like, here's a picture of Julian. It's because as I'm scrolling through social media, I see this big picture. If it was multiple pictures, it would be cut into like quarters. And so it would just be a little right there. But here's the biggest possible picture for the platform. And then what do we see? A smiling human face. It connects to that idea of warmth. We shove somebody's face in another person's face and say, hey, this is a neighbor, you got to listen to them. And that's when cool things really happen. So take that single portrait picture, rock that all day long. There's going to be a temptation to be like, but I've got 30 pictures. Don't do it. Save them for later posts. For your best story-based post, stick with one great picture of the human, and it's going to perform 1,000 times better. Some ideas before you start. Scratch this rule of 60 minutes. Don't worry about that. That's a typo. There's a question in the chat. Julian has created his magazine. It's called The Swag Magazine. And just a little tangent for that. So that post ended up going viral about Julian, this 13-year-old who created his own magazine. And over the course of the 2 days, it was seen by 216,000 people, I think. And it ended up leading him, the governor of Michigan saw the story and invited him to do a Black History Month program with her at the end of February. So it's really, really a cool story. Download the Otter app. So if you are a person that says, this is absolutely something that I want to do, you have to download the Otter app. It's on Android, it's on iPhone. You need to download this app. Why? One, it's free. Two, what it does is that when you sit down for your interview and you hit record, it will record the audio of the interview, but it will also transcribe it for you in real time. You can literally watch the words being typed automatically and edited automatically on your phone as you go. Then even better, when you hit stop recording, it will automatically upload the audio of your interview and the transcription of your interview to your account in the cloud. So then you walk back to your office and you pull up your Otter account and boom, there's the conversation transcribed for you right in front of you. This is the linchpin that makes this doable. At the beginning of Storyville, I hand transcribed every single interview. So if the interview was an hour long, it would take me 3 hours to transcribe it, and then I could actually start writing the story. So this is a giant lifesaver. We'll talk more about this app in a second. It's not 100%. It's probably about like 60 to 70% there. You can't just copy paste it, but man, it is a giant time saver. So step number one, the interview. When you pick your story and you sit down for the interview, what do? You have a conversation. Most of these people are not professional interviewers. They're going to be nervous. It's going to weird them out a little bit. They're not used to even telling their story. They probably may have told their story to nobody before, and that's a little bit of a skill. And so have a conversation with them, talk with them, be friendly, be curious. Play dumb. You might know the person, but play dumb. Like, well, like, how did you start baking? Even if you know the whole story. And then as they go through the interview, don't be afraid to interrupt and dig for details because they know all the context. And so they're going to throw out acronyms or events or places like, hey, when we started on the location at Hamilton Street, jump right in and say, well, tell me about the location on Hamilton Street. Tell me about that. So dig for details because the details are what makes the story better, and it's your job to jump in there and ask those questions. Step two, the photos. You might be feeling nervous, like, I'm not a photographer, though. I don't know how to take these pictures. But there's a saying in photography that the best camera is the one that you have with you. And so we're all walking around with these amazing cameras in our pockets, and those are good enough. So what kind of photos do you take? Obviously, it's humans. Focus on the humans. I know that, like, and I do it too. You want to take all sorts of cool pictures of the pizza because it looks really good and the beer because it looks really good. But a majority of your effort and energy has to be spent on portraits. So how do you take a good portrait? Step number one, find good light. So if it's in a back room of a business somewhere, that's not a good place. The sensor in your phone, for instance, isn't big enough to pick up enough light to make a good image. So what do? You go have them stand by a window. You turn on more lights in the room. You walk outside. You move a lamp closer to their face. So find good light is step one. Step two, composition. What do you want the picture to look like? This picture of Shannon and Ben is actually a picture of them standing in front of a big building they painted a mural on. So they're actually one of the smallest elements in the building. So what do you want the picture to look like? If you want a really simple way to think about this, think close-up shot, medium shot, far away shot. Take some close-up shots, take some medium shots, take some far-away shots, and you should walk away with at least one picture that is awesome. And then finally, try to create some kind of emotion. They're looking pretty stoic here, but one of my best pictures of them, Shannon has like her head back laughing, and Ben is also cackling, because as I'm taking pictures, I'm talking to people, I'm cracking jokes, because I want to capture a moment of emotion. Because not only does the human face convey warmth, the expression of the human face conveys personality and warmth, and the fact there's a story there. So imagine scrolling through your feed and you see two people with giant smiles on their faces. I mean, that's a story that I want to look at, especially in today's kind of social media culture where everybody is fighting everybody about everything. It can be a breath of fresh air. So you've taken your pictures, and now it's time to go back to the office and edit the interview and the photos. So you open up your Otter account, and you're going to copy paste from Otter. So with the transcription from Otter. Now you do something I like to call creative editing. So it's 1 foot in the mechanics of writing and making things flow well. And then it's another foot in creative editing, because what's going to happen is the transcription is going to be this giant flow of thought. In talking, we talk differently than what we read or what we write. And so what you have to do is go through and kind of move this sentence, because, well, they're talking about the beginning of their business here, so it makes more sense here. And so you're kind of moving these building blocks around to make the story make sense. Can you change words? Yes, please do. Because in over probably 3,000 interviews, I have never once had somebody angry at me for making them sound better. I know that's something that I would appreciate. And so feel free, like if you're looking at a word and say, people might misinterpret that, change it. And then after that, edit the photos. Pick your best one. Pick the photo that captures your attention the most. If a picture isn't lit well and it's a little bit out of focus, but my goodness, her expressions are amazing, use that one, because that's the most human picture, and that's what we're going for, not necessarily the most technically perfect. And then finally, step 4, schedule the posts. Don't think that you can do this work just like, well, today at 10 a.m. I'm going to do a story, and then I'll just post it at 11 a.m. That's not what's going to happen. You have to have some kind of plan ahead of time. So use whatever app you're using right now, whether it's Hootsuite or Buffer or Facebook Creator Studio. Sometimes the question is like, well, what is a good time to post? I mean, they're all pretty equal. Tuesday is generally not a good day. It seems, but if I have one post that I really, really want people to see, and I have a feeling it could really take off, I always post it Monday, 7 a.m. People are fresh from the weekend. I can catch them before they go to work on Monday and get kind of consumed with the rest of the week. So Monday at 7 a.m. is a great one. And then finally, making it work. This is so critical. This is really the last slide of the presentation, but please stick with me here, because what we do at Storyville isn't something that nobody has ever done before. I mean, you go to different cities, and people will do the people of San Antonio, or they'll do people of Gary, Indiana. You see projects like that pop up all the time, but what happens with those? People hit them hard with lots of excitement, and then you see 3 stories, and the next week you see 2 stories, and then there's a break, and then the following week there's 1 story, and then you never hear from them again. Why? Because it takes work, and they haven't put processes in place to make sure that it's sustainable. So this is how it becomes sustainable, and it becomes a foundational part of your marketing. Number 1, baby steps. So don't walk away from this presentation saying, every single day for the next year, we're going to write a human story. We're going to do this. We're going to crush it. If you've never written a story before in your life, just go and say, we just need more pictures of people on our social media. And that's it. For the next 4 weeks, your goal is to put at least 1 picture of a human being on your social media every day. Cool. After that, we're going to go and ask 10 different business owners the one question: what's the biggest obstacle you've overcome in running your business? And now you're going to get like little 2-sentence or paragraph long stories. And so now you have these little nugget stories that you can work with to get the process down and get the skill down. So baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. Second part, B+ work forever is better than A+ work almost never. If you're a perfectionist, you are amazing, and we definitely need you in the world. But if you want to spend 18 hours on a single Facebook post because you want to put on your John Steinbeck pants and describe every nook and cranny of the barber shop, and don't do that. People will never end up seeing the stories. We need both quality stories and quantity of stories in order to change people's perception. So if you hit B+ work, boom, send it out into the world, move to the next story, because again, you've got an infinite amount of stories to tell, and you have to tell all of them. And so B+ work is better. Now, here's a great thing about social media. This wasn't planned, but the great thing about social media is that a lot of the content is not good. And so as long as you're better than most of the content people see, you're going to stand out. Most of the content on social media, like C. If you have B+ work, you are going to be a rock star. So rock that B+ work all day. Commit to long term. Can you do these stories every once in a while? Yeah. But where the transformation happens is when you have done it every day for 12 months. That's where the magic happens. So commit to the long term. Figure out how to make that work. Spread the load. If you have a staff, like a fellow staff member, they're the talker, have them do the interviews. You're the creative one. You do the photography. You just cut your workload in half. If you don't have staff, or maybe your staff is so busy with other things, you can't really give them more responsibility, chances are really good that you have local contractors you could contract out, photographers, other writers, things like that. That's something that we do at Storyville is like content sprints. So we come into your city for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and our only goal is to collect as many photos for you as possible so that you've got this giant stockpile of professional quality photos that you can have. Look for a way to spread the load to make the work easier so that it's more sustainable over time. Kind of related to that is funding. All of our high-level contracts are funded through collaborative funding. And that's the beautiful part of storytelling is all of these community stakeholders have an interest in this. If it's a large employer, they want a beautiful place and marketing material, support marketing material that shows that, because that's attractive to high levels of talent. People don't just want jobs anymore. They want beautiful places to live. The government has an interest in this because now the government seems like it's embracing its citizenry. Small businesses want it. All these people can benefit from storytelling. And so it might be a case where you go to all of your community stakeholders and say, hey, can you donate 1,000? Hey, can you donate 5,000? Hey, can you donate 10? And then you pool all of your money into this giant campaign that benefits everyone. It's a really, really beautiful thing when it works. Ad spending, if you have the money for it, you should definitely boost your posts. It doesn't have to be a lot. Even if it's like $5 for your best post of the week, do it, because the platforms are designed for Facebook and Instagram to make money. And so they have this little algorithmic game and things like that. And so if you throw them $5 every once in a while, especially if you're doing this over the long term, it can be really beneficial. Get more mileage from the content. Sometimes people poo-poo this work as like, well, you're just playing on social media. So to convince maybe these funding partners that it's worthwhile, what a lot of the communities do is they take this material and they use it in other ways. So now we've created photography for social media that they also use on all of their city websites. The stories get printed in a local magazine. All they have to do is copy paste the stories for the month and boom, you've got a local magazine. Presentations, all of these different uses for this content, that's a value add. So now you can go to these funding partners and say, not only is it a social media campaign, but look at how all these different uses could benefit from this kind of material. And then finally, engage back. If our whole shtick is to be more human, we have to act like humans on the internet. And so if somebody comments on our posts, we should definitely engage back, at least give them a little like. That's important, one, because we're humans and we should act like human beings. And it's almost like a conversation. If somebody just talks to me and I ignore them, I mean, I'm sending a bad signal, right? Two, the kind of technical side of it is that if that person engages with the page, for instance, Facebook says, you must value this page. We're going to continue showing it to you. But if we teach people not to engage with our page because we're not engaging with them back, and they stop, Facebook says, you must not think that this page is valuable. We're going to stop showing it to you. And so you can have a Facebook page of 50,000 followers, but if the engagement is low, 100 people are going to see your post. You don't actually have 50,000 followers, you have 100. And so if we want to be more human, we have to act more like humans. To end, this is just all my information. If there's interest for like a full version with really simple speaker notes, shoot me an email and say, hey, I'd love to see your speaker notes. If you want to ask questions, if you're interested in how Storyville can help you, shoot me an email, phil@storyvillesocial.com. You can also visit us at storyvillesocial.com. Our website's in a little bit of a state of rebuild, so don't judge me on that, but all the information is there for you. It'll be, trust me, it'll be a fun website when it's finished, but don't judge me. And then, of course, Facebook and Instagram. So with that, I will stop my sharing, turn it back over to Kyle, I believe.
Bill, yeah, that is awesome. I wrote down lots of questions, but folks, this is your opportunity. Use the chat feature to throw in any questions that you have for Phil, and I'll throw them into the lineup. Phil, thank you so much. I loved how practical this was, but you also backed up a lot of your tips with data. So it does make for a very powerful message.
Cool.
I gotta make sure I look at the camera. I'm looking at my second screen. I'm sure you guys are tired of looking at my ear. So I have a few questions. So let's see. Well, one of the first questions, and it's an easy one, I think. You already addressed that, hey, the best camera is the one that you have, being, your phone. But what other kinds of equipment are involved with the story gathering and even taking it all the way to a post?
So
are we missing anything? Yeah.
It really depends on what level you want to get into it. So obviously, like, we are deep, we are deep into it. You can do all of this work from a phone and your computer. So you don't need any sort of special equipment. But if you're like, okay, we're ready to like really take great photos, something like a camera like this. This is the Sony Zv1. It can fit in your pocket, which is awesome because you don't want something unwieldy, but it takes both great video and photos. So if you want a little 2-for-1, like video is really important for you, this is a great camera to have because it can do both. And so you don't need a separate video camera or anything like that. What we do at Storyville, because we're recording these interviews, is that we turn the interviews in for like cities that want them into podcast episodes. And so like you see this, like my microphone and my headphones, this is part of the setup, and that's something that you can do. You can do those virtually now, which is super cool. So like the Blue Yeti microphone is pretty cool for that if you want really great audio, or the potential to record these and say, well, we might want a podcast in the future. Audio quality is really important there. And then just on top of like from there, it's you just get more and more expensive cameras and things like that. But that would be my suggestions.
It's good. Sounds like you can do this on a budget, obviously, with having so many choices. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing about it is like you can literally do this from your phone. And like if you look at the beginning of Humans of New York and how that took off, I mean, the pictures were good, but the pictures weren't the thing. Like you don't look at pictures of Humans of New York and be like, wow, I would pay $100,000 for that picture. I mean, it's just a human being a human, looking human, with coupled with a great story. So if your lighting is good and you're trying to work emotion in there, you're going to hit a home run.
That's good. Thank you. What evidence do you have that strong storytelling actually leads to higher investment, more visits to businesses, increased sales, etc.?
So, one of the first stories that we did was for Saginaw was on the Wub store, which is kind of like a skateboard shop, apparel shop, and we ran a story on them for a week. And Jerry, the owner, sent me a message and said that he had to shut down all of his advertising and marketing because of what the story was doing. So he had to shut down his advertising for the next 2 months because he couldn't keep up. We actually have people in Saginaw, businesses in Saginaw, that turn us down for stories because they couldn't handle the influx of new customers. I've got a list of five people that I kind of check in with every 3 months and say, hey, are you ready for a story yet? And they're like, no, stay away from us. So on the local small business level, there's a lot of evidence that it leads to direct investment. People are starting to contact me now when they're looking for like real estate, or they're looking for connections to other entrepreneurs. Like, hey, Phil, do you know anybody with a commercial kitchen for lease? I'm like, why, yes, I do. I have a story on that. And so you really become a connector because you've made all of these connections through different stories that you've done. And so there's a value add there that you're just expanding your network and what you know about people.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, I can imagine that, when you really touch someone's heart, that, they are more willing to, say, spend money at a local business, yep, or connect to the mission of your Main Street organization or nonprofit, whatever it might be. That is something that we see, yeah, pretty consistently, at least in the Main Street world.
Yeah, and you look at 2020, it's like everything shut down because of COVID, and like, why did people go out and get takeout? It wasn't because we love takeout and like, oh man, this is our chance to get only takeout for the next 10 months. It's because we were shown if we don't care and support our local businesses, they will disappear. And so it really like burned down all the other reasons why we support local businesses. And then it said, no, we will give money to them simply to keep them around. And that comes from pride and emotion and things like that. And so like 2020 has been a blessing because it's really shown people like, no, these places can go away, and they can all go away right now if we don't support them.
Yeah. Let's see, what else should or could this content, where else should or could this content go after it lives for a few minutes on social media, especially since, and this is Andrea in Harrisonburg, especially since I am seeing so many people leave Facebook these days. And I think I heard, you talked about the podcast and presenting, whenever you're doing presentations and so forth, but where else might this live afterwards?
So your own website is a great place for it, because it's giving you content, and then also because you're updating the website often with really dense keywords. Google is going to recognize that activity and say, oh, like this website's getting updated every week, and look at all these keywords and look at these associations. And so then when people type in Stanton, Virginia, now your website is the first one, and now at the very top of your website you've got all of like your top 5 stories that people can click on, and so now they can live permanently there. You can also like create your own local magazine. Maybe that's connected to your website digitally. Maybe it's like a quarterly magazine, like we have one here in the Great Lakes Bay region that comes out quarterly, and you just compile all of those stories into print material. The changing landscape of social media is tough, and so it is kind of a you have to adapt stories as you go. You know, for instance, these stories work really well on Facebook and Instagram because of the character limit, but they don't work really well like on Twitter. And so if a city has a Twitter account, we just link the story either to the website where it sits, or we link the story to the Facebook post where it is. So it does become a little bit complicated just because social media is changing all the time, but you can find little places where you can put the stories after social media. You can also bring them up again. Like sometimes we think, well, we already told this story once, so we can't ever tell it again. But at the end of the year, what we do is like a little year-end recap, a celebration of all of these stories. And so you can reuse them again. And now you've got, 3 weeks worth of content at the end of the year around Christmas that you've already made the entire year before. And so you're getting more mileage by simply printing them or posting them again. And when you go in and collect like photos, typically like you won't just get a picture of the person, you're going to get them making the pizza and action shots and behind the things. And so you can populate your stream with great pictures, not necessarily with the story, but you've collected them at the same time. And so that's kind of a workflow time saver as well.
Yeah, thank you. I can't believe it's 12:14 already. We're due to implode at 12:15. So I want to throw in one quick question. We really want to be fair and equitable and give, say, all of our businesses the attention. But how do you determine the priority of the businesses or the stories, so someone doesn't feel left out? Is there a method behind that?
So that's a great question. And that's a challenge that you're going to run into because everybody has a different approach to like who gets their story told first. Like, well, is it the business that's been there for 50 years? Is it the new business? Is it this business? And so it is a balancing act. And at the beginning of the campaign, what we tell people is that we're going to take time to tell the stories well. And so like each week is dedicated to one story. We tell it over the course of a bunch of posts. And so we teach people like, please don't think that we can tell all 2,000 of our stories at the same time. And to make people feel better about maybe being later in the queue is I will tell them if they do say like, hey, why haven't you featured us yet? I'll say something like, well, we definitely could feature you now, but imagine if we featured you in 6 months when we have 10,000 more followers. And now you're kind of saying like, well, there's a benefit to waiting. And so there's so many variables to whose stories get told first. We evaluate stories based on length of time that they are in the city, who owns the business. So is it a minority-owned business? Is it a woman-owned business? What kind of business is it? So we can't just have 6 straight months of restaurants because that's going to hurt everybody. What kind of events do they have? Like, are they doing a new menu, or like all of these different factors kind of influence in that. You're going to make some people angry because they feel like they need their story told right now. And sometimes I do that. I'm like, sweet, I'll be over tomorrow. That way there I can tell their story and get them out of my hair. But you have to evaluate what stories you tell based on who owns it, how long they've been there, demographic, so that you're really being equitable in the amount of stories that you're doing, and then just what the subject matter is to keep the entire flow and story arc of the stories compelling to people. Yeah,
Bill, that's great. And man, I think we could stick around for another half hour and have some good conversations, because I know folks have some questions, and you're so personable. So clearly you know what you're doing in this realm and you're suited for it. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
I might
you.
be throwing you a few questions, but folks, just let you know that the presentation itself, the PowerPoint slides will be available along with the recording on virginiamainstreet.com. So Phil's information will be there if you want to reach out to him with some follow-up questions that we weren't able to address. So Phil, thank you so much.
And I will say definitely do that. Reach out with questions, because I mean, I have a firm belief that this kind of marketing can change the world. So if you need some kind of help or assistance, I will definitely be there for you.
Yeah, I agree. The story gathering, the storytelling is such an important part of community revitalization and putting a human face on the work that's being done. But it often gets overlooked for other shinier objects in the strategy. So certainly something to put your time into. So awesome, Phil. Thank you so much. Well, folks,
thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Let's see. We've come to the end, but there's more stuff coming up, of course, and I just want to draw that to your attention, draw your attention to that really quickly before we close out here. That you can find information about the Creating Community Vitality series on virginiamainstreet.com, where you can also learn about downtown management best practices, local stories, funding opportunities, and upcoming events across the Commonwealth. So sign up to receive posts in the bottom right-hand corner of the landing page. But upcoming on March 15th is a podcast with Raven Bates of Virginia Community Development Corporation, so VCDC's Mission Elevation Program, and several of our beloved Virginia Main Street directors, Andrea Dono of Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance and Debbie Haight of Historic Manassas. Hey, ladies, I know you're here. They will review their experiences in the program and introduce you to the tools that will help your nonprofit thrive. And then in April, we will focus on building a robust leadership network with John Sarvey of Richmond's Flora Cane for the webinar and Sarah Milston of the Spark Mill for the podcast. Let's see, one more slide with some information so you know who to go to. So where can you get help? If you have any questions, please reach out to DHCD's Community Revitalization Office staff. Contact informations and tons of community building resources are available on the DHCD website and Virginia Main Street blog. Hyperlinks are active in the webinar handout, so look out for that. But thanks for everyone. Thanks for being here. Be well and enjoy the sunshine. Get out there and catch some rays. And we'll see you next month for the April webinar. Thank you.